So now moving over to the next topic, that is growth and development in preventive pediatrics. Beta, in this chapter, in this topic, in this video section, we are going to talk broadly about four main areas. We will talk about what are the indicators of growth and development. We will also talk about what is malnutrition, how to measure growth and development. Like this is a 3 by 5 star MCQ topic for your exam. Next in line, we will also talk about the growth charts, which is, I feel, is a 5 by 5 star MCQ topic for your exam. In the last, I will try to show you what is the data that we have from the NFHS 5, like what's the status of growth and development in India. So talking about the indicators of growth and development, first is simple thing that you check for the weight of the baby and you check for the height of the child. So talking about weight, just one or two, very simple. I think you've done this in pediatrics. The weight of the baby, the average weight, birth weight that we have in India is 2.8 to 3.0 kilograms. If you get single based answer, please mark 2.8. The weight will double. It will become 2x in 5 to 6 months. It will become 3x or triple in 1 year. It will become quadruple or 4x in 2 years. Next is about the height of the child or the length of the child, right? The height or the length of the child is roughly around 50 centimeters at birth. The height is going to increase by 25 centimeters in the first year, 12 centimeters in the second year, 9, 7, and 6. So 9 centimeters in third year, 7 centimeters in the fourth year, and 6 centimeters in the fifth year of life. So this is increment every year. This is increment in centimeters in height every year. So in first year, 25, 12, 9, 7, and 6. That's how you can remember about the height and the weight. Coming over to the third main topic. This is MCQ, frequently asked MCQ, 3 by 5 star MCQ topic for your exam. Coming to the main indicators, what are the indicators? Beta, we can talk about something called as weight for age, weight for height, and height for age. What is all this that I have written? I have written weight for age. I have written weight for the height. Whatever weight is there for that particular height. And then is the height for the age. So I've written three things: weight for age, weight for height, and height for age. So if you talk about these indicators in your exam, there are three broad understandings. Let us say a child is there who presents to you with acute diarrhea. Since last 2-3 days, the child was having a lot of diarrhea. So in case the child is having a lot of diarrhea, there is acute diarrhea in the child. What will happen to the weight, weight of the baby for that particular age? If a child is having 2 days or 3 days, if you have 3 days of diarrhea, the weight for the age is going to be low because the weight will be low, the age is going to be same. What will happen to the weight for the height? What will happen to the weight for the height? The weight is going to be low, the height is not going to be low in 2-3 days, nothing is going to change, so the weight for the height is also going to be low. What will happen to the height for the age? What will happen for the height for the age? The height in 2-3 days is not going to change. Height is same, the age is also same, so it will be same. You don't have to worry about height for age. Next in line, let us say that the child suffers from chronic malabsorption. Chronic malabsorption syndromes. Some chronic malabsorption syndrome, chronic MAS, you can write it as, or any disease. You can say celiac disease, you can say Whipple disease, you can say any chronic diarrhea, persistent diarrheas. In case there is a malabsorption syndrome, what is going to happen to the weight of the age? Weight for the child for that particular age. The age is going to be same, the weight is going to be low. So technically, common sense, the weight for age will be low. Next is I'm talking about the height for age. What will happen to the height for the age? The height of the child who's having a chronic malabsorption. Very frequently in the OPD, when the female comes, the mother comes with the child, that doctor, see this child is not growing in height and not having weight. The main complaint is that the poor child is very weak. They will say that he is not able to sustain the height. So the main problem is with the height. In chronic diarrheas, the height will be less, the age is going to be the same. So definitely the height for the age is going to be less. What is going to happen to the weight for the height now? Now I am talking about the weight for the height. What is going to happen to the weight? The weight is going to be low. The height will also be low. So it will appear to be normal. है ना? It may appear to be normal. It is not normal. So if you talk about this weight for height, weight for age and height for age, which of the following is the best marker for acute malnutrition? So don't answer weight for age. In acute, which of the following indicator is the only one indicator which decreases only in acute? I think what I see over here is only in acute, only weight for height is decreasing, है ना? Which of the following? So definitely common sense, this becomes as a very specific marker for what? It is a specific marker for acute malnutrition or acute undernutrition. Next MCQ, which of the following is a very good marker for chronic undernutrition, which is a very specific marker? Which one decreases only in chronic? What I see is only height for age. The height for age is going to decrease where? Only in chronic malnutrition. So which of the following is a very good marker for chronic malnutrition? I would like to mark height for age. Next MCQ, which of the following is a general marker of general marker? Any undernutrition, acute undernutrition, chronic undernutrition, the weight for age is going to decrease. Simple answer, simple question. Weight for age is a general marker for any type of undernutrition. It is, which of the following is the most sensitive marker? You remember in screening of disease, we discussed that sensitivity means the initial test. So the most sensitive marker will be the weight for age. Most specific for acute malnutrition is weight for height. Most specific for chronic malnutrition is height for age. Do not do. If you do errors in this question, then I don't think anybody can save you. Please note, these are the most easiest questions you can ever expect in the exam. Please note, please put it in your gray matter. It will be required in pediatrics. It will be required in medicine. It is required every day. That which of the following is the general marker under nutrition? It is weight for age. Which is the acute marker? You don't have to apply brain. It is simple common understanding that weight for height is a marker for acute malnutrition. Weight for age is a general undernutrition marker, and height for age is chronic undernutrition. So now with that understanding, let us say you are sitting in a OPD. Okay, you sit down in a OPD, you are the doctor in charge, and a mother comes to you with her child. So the child is presented to you in your OPD. You are a doctor sitting. What is the first thing you are going to check? Which is the first thing? Which is the screening tool? You'll check the weight for age, weight for height, or height for age. I think I'm going to check the weight for age. Why? Because weight for age is a general marker of undernutrition. If you check the weight for age, the child may be normal weight for age, or the child may be low on weight for age. If the child is low on the weight for age, okay? If the child is low on weight for age, you should check again. Now, if the child is low on the weight for age, common sense, I should check for weight for height, and I should check for the height for age, because then only I will be able to find out whether it's acute malnutrition or it's a chronic malnutrition. So if it is low on weight for height, if it is normal on weight for height, that is common sense, that's fine. So if it is low on weight for height, if it is low on weight for height, what is this called as, beta? What will you call to this? Low on weight for height. It is called as acute malnutrition. It will be called as acute malnutrition. And if you talk about the low, if the child is low on height for age, what is this called as? This will be called as a chronic malnutrition. This will be called as chronic malnutrition. If you understand this, this is very simple. If you understand this, let us have some MCQs on this now. If you talk about the weight for age, what is this classification known as? Taking into account the weight for age is called as the Gomez classification. It is called as Gomez classification. Very frequently asked MCQ. Gomez uses what? Gomez uses weight for age, weight for height, height for age. Answer is simple, weight for age. If a baby is low on Gomez, then we are going to check the weight for height and height for age. What do you mean by low on Gomez? What is a low on Gomez? What is high on Gomez? Please note that if the child is having less than 80% of the expected weight for age is called as a low on Gomez. So what is the criteria which is used by Gomez classification? The criteria is pretty simple. You need to remember what? The criteria is very simple. You need to remember what? That Gomez less than 80% is what is low on weight for age. Okay, let's move ahead. Now, if the child is low on Gomez, now you're supposed to check the weight for height and height for age. If the child is low on weight for height, that is called as acute malnutrition. And if the child is low on height for age, that is called as chronic malnutrition. What is this classification known as? If you classify based on the weight for height or height for age, what is this classification known as? This classification is called as the Waterloo's classification. It is called as the Waterloo's classification. It is called as Waterloo's classification. So what is Gomez classification? It takes into account the weight for age. What is Waterloo's classification? It will take into account the weight for height and height for age. So if the weight for height is low, that is weight for height is low, that is acute. If the height for age is low, that is chronic. So what do you mean by low on Waterloo's classification? What do you mean by low? What is the cutoff criteria? Is it 80%? Answer is wrong. It is not 80%. If the child is less than -2 standard deviations, that is categorized as low on Waterloo's. So there are so many MCQs I have written here that every word is MCQ. So when a child comes to us, what is the first thing we are supposed to do? When the child comes to us, the first thing we are supposed to do is the Gomez classification. MCQ, what does Gomez take into account? It takes into account what? Please answer. It takes into account the weight for age. What is low weight for age? What is low on Gomez? Gomez will be less than 80%. Of course, there is Gomez 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll study many classification in pediatrics section. But Gomez is less than 80% weight for age. Next in line is Waterloo's classification. Waterloo's. What is low on Waterloo's? It is -2 standard deviation. It will divide into weight for height and height for age. What is weight for height? It is acute malnutrition. Height for age is chronic malnutrition. Less than -2 is Waterloo's. Less than 80% is what is Gomez. So that finishes your couple of 2-3 MCQs you have done over here. That is regarding the indicators. So that is your first question. We discussed about the indicators of malnutrition, or indicators how to measure undernutrition. Little bit more forward into it. So you have learned that there is a weight for age, and then you see the weight for height and the height for age. If the child is low on height for age, that is called as what? What is it called as? Please say with me. It is called as chronic. In medical terms, we also call this as stunting. This is also called as stunting. In weight for height, if the child is low on weight for height, that is called as acute malnutrition. In medical terms, this is also called as wasting. Please, in clinic, we don't say wasting. We don't say to a child that you are wasted child. In medical terms, in research, we call this weight for height as a specific word that is called as wasting, and height for age is specifically called as stunting, and weight for age, if it is low, that is specifically called as undernutrition. That is called as undernutrition. So now if the child is low weight for age or low weight for height, you know how to classify. Now the problem starts. You have read already in pediatrics. Did you read pediatrics? In pediatrics, you must have already read that there is something called as protein energy malnutrition. I won't be going into protein energy malnutrition. That's a hardcore forte of pediatrics. But just to touch around that, do you know how many types of protein energy malnutrition is there? Protein energy malnutrition could be of two types. You can have kwashiorkor. It is of two extremes, okay? It could be any range in between kwashiorkor, or we can have another extreme, that is marasmus. I think we all know this. Marasmus is what? It is severe wasting. What is kwashiorkor? It is severe protein deficiency. You must have read this. This is severe protein deficiency. There is more protein deficiency in kwashiorkor compared to marasmus. Marasmus is more energy depletion. Energy depletion is a lot in marasmus, whereas there is a lot of protein deficiency in a child who is kwashiorkor. If there is protein deficiency, which of the following disease is going to have edema? Can you tell me that which of the following is kwashiorkor or marasmus is going to have edema? I think it is common sense. Wherever in your body, if the protein is low, there will be edema. So that means edema is a feature in kwashiorkor. Now, if you understand this, coming back to my point. A child presents to you with kwashiorkor. It is hidden and nobody knows about kwashiorkor, but the child knows that he is kwashiorkor. What will happen to the weight for the age for a kwashiorkor child? If the child was having kwashiorkor, what will happen to the weight for the age? The child is already having edema, beta. The weight for age will look to be normal. Of course, it is not normal. It is weight high because of what? Because of edema. So whenever, that's what the MCQ is, but whenever there is edema, please note it in your brain. whenever the question will say there is edema. It could be with edema, it could be with kwashiorkor, it could be without kwashiorkor, whatever it is. In case the question says there was edema in undernutrition, in case of edema, we cannot use any of the classification. Gomez, Waterlow's cannot be used. We use a special classification. What is that called as? Wellcome. It is called as, I'll write it with a different pen so that it goes into your brain, that is Wellcome. It is called as Wellcome Trust classification. It is called as Wellcome Trust classification. So you have understood 3 classification. Now you have studied about the Gomez classification. You have studied about the Waterlow's classification, and you have studied about the Wellcome Trust classification. So now Gomez is for the weight for age. Waterlow's will tell you about the acute or the chronic. Acute means weight for height and chronic means height for age, and Wellcome Trust is done in case of edema. It is done in case of edema. These are the MCQs you would like to remember for your exam. So now coming over to the next section of this video, where we are going to talk about the malnutrition per se. If you talk about general malnutrition overall. So what is malnutrition? It is low weight for age. It could be low weight for height, or it could be low height for age. Even in some children, there could be low weight for height also, and that there could be low weight for height for age also. That means there could be a combined malnutrition. There could be even be acute malnutrition on the chronic. The child was already having a chronic malnutrition. On top of that, the child got diarrhea. So that we call it as combined malnutrition. And so in combined, you'll have everything which is low. So how do you find out malnutrition? First is you need to check the weight of the baby. Common sense, how do we check the weight of the baby? The weight is checked using a machine in our OPDs. It could be there in Anganwadi centers. It could be there for home-based delivery also. We have a Salter scale. So in Government of India, in the health system, we have a Salter scale. So there could be just one MCQ on a Salter scale. If you just look at the Salter scale, so it is a scale which is hanging from the top. Of course, it's not a very good looking picture because this is a very fancy thing we have in India. We have the simple Nicker is there. So this is a Salter scale. And then there is a simple shorts which is hanging, right? So you just put the baby in the shorts and the Nicker which is hanging, and the scale is going to tell you that how much is the weight. On Salter scale, if you talk, the only MCQ that you can get is Salter is a very good scale for checking the weight of the baby, especially when the child is not able to stand by themselves. So in Salter scale, the weight is going to be told in how many grams? Like, will it tell you in 3,565 grams? Answer is no. It tells you in 100 grams. That is the sensitivity of Salter scale. So it is going to tell you whether it is 3,500 or 3,600 or 3,700 gram weighing baby. Okay, so that is the sensitivity of the Salter scale. It tells you in 100 grams. Another point which can be asked to you is after weight. That is simple. You understand weight by the Salter scale. Another MCQ which can be asked to you is point number 2. That is regarding the mid upper arm circumference, MUAC. Let's have a look at what is this MUAC. Point number 2. Mid upper arm circumference. It is called as mid upper arm circumference. It is mid upper arm circumference. Please note that mid upper arm circumference, it is a very sensitive indicator. It is a highly sensitive indicator. This indicator is sensitive indicator. It is age independent. Okay. It is age independent. It does not depend on the age of the child, if it is 2 years or 3 years or 4 years or 1 year. It is done only after 6 months of age. You cannot do it in a newborn child. It is done where? It is done in the mid upper arm, from the acromion to the olecranon, right from the top till the bottom. You do the mid upper arm, right? That's what is mid upper arm. So you do the mid upper arm. It checks about the girth of mid upper arm. And that is a very sensitive because the triceps muscle is the first muscle usually to lose or gain weight with the weight of the child. So that is what we do in mid upper arm circumference. I think how do we check mid upper arm circumference? The whole country knows the answer. It is Shakir's tape. We use a Shakir's tape. What is this Shakir tape? If I just show you the Shakir tape, can you see that this is the Shakir's tape you see over here? So the MCQ can be asked to you is that what is the cutoff criteria of the Shakir's tape? I know there's a lot of confusion on this. I'm going to solve all your controversies right now, but please just note that if the mid upper arm circumference, that is the Shakir's tape, is less than 11.5 centimeters, that is called as severe acute malnourishment. If it is 11.5 to 12.5, that is called as undernourishment, or actually it is what is we call as at-risk child. That means that this 11.5 to 12.5, still the child would be salvageable. There's no problem with the child. But if the mid upper arm circumference is more than 12.5, that is what is a very good zone. That is, there is no undernutrition. There could be normal nutrition or overnutrition, but at least it's not undernutrition. So that is what is a Shakir's tape. Please note that the cutoff criteria is 11.5. Now, sometimes students read different books, right? Different books are available in the market. Different platforms are available in the market. So sometimes students will read different books, sometimes old books. If you read the old book, can you see the Shakir tape over here? I don't know if you can just zoom into your screens right now, that if you just look at the Shakir tape, can you see where the cutoff criteria for the yellow zone is? Can you see that it is below 11 centimeters? Please note this is the old Shakir tape. It was previously used long years back, many years, in fact more than 10 years. So more than 10 years back, we used to use a Shakir tape with the criteria of less than 11 centimeters. So nowadays, we don't use the criteria of 11 centimeters. Nowadays, we are using the 11.5 criteria. So please note, the old Shakir tape is not used anymore, and nowadays we are using the new Shakir tape. The new Shakir tape cutoff criteria is 11.5 to 12.5 is what is the at-risk child. Less than 11.5, that is severe acute malnutrition. Less than 11.5 will be severe acute malnutrition. So you just need to know about the Shakir's tape. Now let us say that a child is low on the Shakir's tape. Let us say that the child is having less than 11.5 mid upper arm circumference. Now this child is severe malnourished. It could be a severe acutely malnourished, or it could be even a severe chronic malnourishment. But the child is less than 11.5. So now let us talk something about SAM child. What is this SAM child? SAM stands for the severe acute malnutrition, severe acute malnutrition. Beta, when do you diagnose? First MCQ, how do you diagnose SAM child? If you look at the criteria for diagnosing SAM child, so SAM child, that is severe acute malnutrition, can be diagnosed using 3 criteria. The 3 criteria could be, if the mid upper arm circumference is less than 11.5 centimeters, first, mid upper arm circumference less than 11.5. The second is, in case there is a low weight for height. Weight for height is less than -3 standard deviations. If the weight for height is less than -3 standard deviation, and in case there is pedal edema, there is bilateral pitting pedal edema. This is the main criteria for diagnosing a SAM child, severe acute malnourishment. So if you just look at a SAM child, I can show you the SAM child. So age more than 6 months, we are talking about the age more than 6 months. So there is weight for height less than -3. There is visible wasting mid upper arm circumference 11.5, and there is edema on both the feet. In case the child age is less than 6 months, then we do not take into account the severe wasting mid upper arm circumference. You take into account the severe wasting, edema, and weight for height less than -3. So if you talk about the criteria for the child, for a SAM child, that there should be weight for height less than -3, there is mid upper arm circumference and presence of nutritional anemia. So what does the government do? In case we have a SAM child, which is usually 6 to 7% children with undernutrition, they develop SAM, severe acute malnutrition. So in Government of India, any child who beta has a SAM, that is severe acute malnutrition, we have a system in which the child will go to NRC. What is NRC now? NRC stands for Nutritional Rehabilitation Center. NRC stands for Nutritional Rehabilitation Center. In this center, we will admit the child. So when you admit a child, the child is already having severe acute malnutrition. The first thing that we need to do is salvage the child. You need to bring back the child to survival. So that is called as phase 1. So in the phase 1, we call it as a stabilization phase. Stabilization phase. So at the phase 1, in the first phase, you have a stabilization phase. In next phase, that is the phase 2, we call it as a transition phase. Now the child will enter into a transition phase. And once the child is out of the transition phase, we call that as a phase 3, where the child can be sent to a maintenance. So now what we have understood over here is that in the NRC, there could be a stabilization phase, there could be a transition phase, or there could be a maintenance phase, right? In the stabilization phase, which lasts for 1 to 2 days, we give a special diet. That diet is called as a starter diet. In the transition phase, which lasts for 2 to 3 days, we give a special diet. The name of the diet I'm writing. The diet is called as a catch-up diet. In the maintenance phase, which is a longer time, we give a diet which is a home-based nutritious diet. It is a home-based nutritious diet. That is what we give in the maintenance phase. MCQs on this. What is this starter diet called as? This diet is beta called as a F75 diet. The catch-up diet is called as a F100 diet. Whereas a home-based is a home-based. What is this F75 and F100? F75, these are just fancy names. It's a F75 means what? Very simple. Nothing, no brainer in this. 75 means 75 kilocals. It will have 75 kilocals, whereas the F100 has 100 kilocals. So just remember, this is what is basic thing for you to remember. Stabilization phase, we give a starter diet, which is F75 diet. In a transition phase, you give a catch-up diet, which is F100 diet. Which is having more calorie? Common sense, it is the F100 which has more calorie. If you talk about the protein in F75, the protein is only 0.9 grams protein, whereas in F100 it is 2.9 grams of protein. We can say that the protein content in the F100 is 3 times than the F75, or in simple words, F75 is a low protein, 75 calorie diet. F100 is a higher protein and 100 calorie diet. If I just take you to a little bit more detail, like we have already discussed, there is a stabilization phase, transition phase, and a rehab phase. I'm just zooming into the stabilization phase. If I just zoom into the stabilization phase, you can see that the diet, type of diet that you are giving is a starter diet, F75 and diet. We are constituting, like F75 is 1 sachet. You put this 1 sachet in 1 liter of water. 1000 ml of water. So you mix this with 1 liter of water. It will give you sugar of 100 grams, vegetable oil 20 grams, and add water to make a 1 liter thing. So you add cow's milk in tune of 300 ml to this starter diet. So this starter diet will give you 75 kilocalories and 0.9 grams of protein per 100 ml of the starter diet. So total we give is 1 liter. So the next one is the catch-up diet. You can see that catch-up diet, it is F100 diet. In the F100, we are giving 100, it's F100, so it is 100 calories. It is 2.9 grams of protein. It is a good higher amount of lactose. lactose also. In this, the cow's milk is roughly around 900 ml of cow's milk we take, which is a toned milk. We add sugar 75 grams. In the F100, it was roughly slightly more. In F100, the sugar was 100 grams, whereas in the F100, it is 75 grams. It's just opposite, okay? And the vegetable oil is added and so on, and you add water to make 1 liter. That's the same funda. So you have this F starter, F75 diet, which is a starter diet, F100 diet, which is a catch-up diet. So if you just look at the maintenance diet, the maintenance diet is nothing but a home-based, healthy, hygienic, balanced diet. The point for you to understand is that when do we give the transition phase diet? We give the transition phase diet when the child shows some improvement. Please note, I'll just read it out for you, that when there is beginning of loss of edema or return of appetite and all these things. But the MCQ which may be asked to you is that when do you start the child on rehab phase? That's important. This could be MCQ, so please take note, this could be MCQ, that when do you start a child on the maintenance phase? The child is started when the child is able to finish how much percent? More than 90% of the feed is given to the child, and there should not be other medical problems, and there should not be almost negligible edema. The edema should have been gone. Then we can safely put the child on a maintenance diet. So that is what I wanted to bring to your notice, that maintenance diet is started when the child is able to complete 90% of the allotted feed given to the child. So please note that in stabilization phase, we are giving some diet and we are giving some micronutrients. In transition, you're giving some diet and you're giving some micronutrient. So that means the take-home summary is that stabilization phase, you give the F75 diet, and transition phase, you give the F100 diet, and when the child is able to complete the 90% of the feed, we give the maintenance diet. So now, along with the F75, next point I'm trying to make, along with the F75 and the F100 diet, we also add some micronutrients. There is also, this is extra, right? This is extra beyond the F75, F100 diet. So the micronutrients which we supplement are more importantly about iron and vitamin A. Very important. Of course, zinc and everything, selenium, chromium, everything is there. But more importantly, I would like to stress upon, because that could be your MCQ, about the iron and about the vitamin A. Please note that as far as iron is concerned, it is contraindicated, not contra, it is not given. It is not given in the stabilization phase. In the initial phase where you are talking about the stabilization phase, please note that iron is not given in this phase. Why? Because it may lead to cardiac overload of the child. Iron is contraindicated in the F75 diet. In the subsequent diet, in the transition phase also, we will start the iron only once the child settles down with edema and the child is able to tolerate some portion of the diet. See, in the transition phase, there is beginning of loss of edema and the return of appetite the child starts taking. So once the child will start taking, at that point, we will start with the iron. So please note that iron is given after 2 days of the catch-up diet. After 1 to 2 days of the catch-up diet, at least iron is not given in the phase 1, that is the stabilization phase. Iron is not given. That is one very important, crucial point for you to remember. It may be asked in your exam. Next point is regarding the vitamin A dose. Vitamin A dose, very simple to understand. Less than 6 months, you give 50,000. From 6 months to 1 year, from 6 months to 1 year of age, or if the child weight is, even if it is more than 1 year, if the child weight is less than 8 kgs, we give 1 lakh international units. And if the child weight is more than 8 kgs, or if the child is more than 1 year, you're supposed to give 2 lakh international units. This is the standard dosage for vitamin A supplementation. So we are giving, very importantly, vitamin A. We are giving, very importantly, iron. Along with that, we are also giving all other nutrients. For example, folic acid. If you want, if you are a nerdy person, you can remember these numbers. Otherwise, personally speaking, it's not so much required. But all said and done, elemental zinc is 2 milligram, folic acid is 5 milligram, copper is 0.3 milligram per kg. Everything is per kg per day. Regarding all other micronutrients, I would like you to take a general formula. It is usually given twice the recommended dietary allowances. So the micronutrient supplementation along with the F75 and the F100, that is going to give you the calorie intake. That is what we do in the NRC. So previously we have discussed about the indicators. We also talked about the malnutrition indicators, the severe acute malnourishment, and the NRCs. Now let us move forward and let us talk something about the growth charts. That will be the last topic of this section. We will talk about the growth charts. See, beta, growth chart. Growth chart was devised by whom? It was devised by David Moorley. They were given by David Moorley. So the growth chart is between what and what? What do you want to say? It is between weight for age, weight for height, or height for age. Common sense, it is for weight for age. Why? Because it's a general undernutrition marker. We have been discussing this all the time in this module. So it is usually drawn between weight for age. Of course, you can draw it between weight for height. You can have height for age growth charts. You can have BMI for age growth charts. You can have anything growth charts. But normally for growth and development, we make the weight for age growth charts. So chart is a chart. Okay, it's a graph. So on the y-axis, on the horizontal axis, usually we are going to plot the weight of the child, and on the horizontal axis, that is the x-axis, we are usually going to plot the age of the child. So as the age will grow, the weight is going to grow. That's a normal phenomena. Now just imagine what is happening. So what I am going to show to you is a ICDS growth chart. What does ICDS stands for? Integrated Child Development Services. What growth chart I am going to show to you is the ICDS growth chart. So let us say that in whatever area we are sitting, let us say you are sitting in Delhi, you are sitting in Mumbai, you might be sitting in any part of the country or anywhere in the world. So let us say that I call upon all the children who are age, I'm giving you a hypothetical example, okay? So don't take it otherwise. Let us say that I call upon all the children who are age 1 year to stand on the main street near your house. Okay, just imagine, it's a hypothetical example. Let us say that all the children whose age is 1 year, around 1 year, 11 months to 13 months, I call them to stand in front of the lane in your house, and the smallest child will stand in the front, the heaviest child will stand at the back. So you have the child who is sitting like this and standing like this. You have the heaviest child in the back and the smallest child in the front. Common sense? So basically what I have done is I have arranged the children of the same age as per their weight, ascending to descending order. So now if I take the centermost bacha, if I take the centermost child, what will that child be? Will that child be the 50th percentile? Because that is what the center child, that is the median. That is the median. That will be the median of the total weight. It will be the median. Can it also, I can say that this is the 50th percentile. What is percentile? You'll learn in biostats. If you have watched the module in biostats, you already know what's a percentile. But in case you haven't, you will learn in biostats. But right now, I don't want you to switch this video off and go to biostats to learn percentile. Anyways, leave it. So percentile is simple. You take any data, you divide it into 100 tiles, 100 boxes, and you see the center box. That is what is the median, right? So the 50th percentile, this child will be my 50th percentile, this center child. If let us say that you are a researcher, you pick this child up, and you say that, beta, you come outside, and you see that at age 1 year, at age 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 100 years, this child, how will the child grow? So they saw that it grew something like this. So what is this first curve lying at? What is this first curve lying at? This first curve is lying at what? It is the 50th percentile of some children in your area. So this is the 50th percentile of the weight. Okay. Then we take the most bareek bacha, most thinnest child, or the most from the weaker part. So you pick up the child who is standing, statistically we calculate that. That is, we pick the child who is at -2 standard deviation, okay? We pick the child who is at -2 standard deviation. So you pick this child who is at -2 standard deviation. You say that, beta, please, you come here. we will see to this child how will this child grow. So of course this child was having lesser weight than the 50th percentile, common sense, right? So this curve is at -2 standard deviation. Then from the first child, somewhere near the first or the second child, we calculate it. Okay, it's statistically calculated. We pick up a third child whose weight is -3 standard deviation. He is one of the most thinnest child. -3 standard deviation, that is very thin than -2. So poor fellow, his weight was very low and he grew something like this. So that is the -3 standard deviation. So this is what is a ICDS growth. So that means that if you just look at the screen right now, such a wonderful phenomena you will observe that a child who is below 50th percentile, very important, do not confuse. A child who is below 50th percentile but more than 2 standard deviation, that means which child? This child. So the center child is taken as the upper reference curve, okay? The center child of the Indian data, the center weight of the Indian data or the average weight of the Indian data, that is taken as the upper curve. And the children who are below the upper curve, that is the center point, till -2, that is the green zone. So they lie in a green zone. And then you have is the children who are below -2 and between -2 and -3. These children are called as at-risk children. This is what is, mark the words, listen to the words. This is what is mild to moderate malnutrition. It is not single answer, mild malnutrition or moderate malnutrition. If you get single best answer, of course, no examiner is going to give you single best answer, but the single best answer would be a moderate malnutrition. There's nothing called as mild malnutrition. So mild could be just ranging between some days. So usually we classify this as moderate, but anyways, technical word is mild to moderate malnutrition. And the child who is below, poor fellow, who is below the -2 standard deviation, that is what we call as the red zone. This is the red zone, and this is what is severe malnutrition. This is what is severe malnutrition. So this is beta what you have as the ICDS growth chart. Will you remember that? So 3 MCQs or 2 MCQs in ICDS growth chart. In ICDS growth chart, how many curves do you see? I see 3 curves, 50th percentile, -2 and -3. How many zones do you see? We see 3 zones or 4 zones probably. You see the lowest zone is the red zone, then you have the yellow zone, then you have the green zone, and then on top of that you have is the white color area or the white zone, which we say is usually overnutrition. So the average is always taken as the average. It is always good to remain below the average in terms of the health. So of course, what is obesity? That is entirely different story. This growth chart is to find out undernutrition. It is not to find out overnutrition. So that is what is the MCQs you might get on growth chart as far as the curves are concerned. Now, once you have a look at this growth chart, let me take you through a journey of another growth chart. Another growth chart, what I am trying to discuss with you is a WHO growth chart, which is again drawn between the weight and the age of a person, of a child. So if you have understood the previous growth chart, that is the ICDS growth chart. These growth charts, these are the ICDS growth chart. What is ICDS? It stands for Integrated Child Development Services. Mark the word, it is Integrated Child Development Services growth chart. If you understand this growth chart, now it's comparatively easy for you to understand the WHO growth chart. In WHO growth chart, this WHO growth chart was made in a different city. So this WHO growth chart was made by the US people. In United States, there's a small town called as Boston, which has a small medical college. Do you know the name of that medical college? It's called as Boston Medical College or the Harvard University. It's a Harvard University. So basically, this growth chart was formulated by the faculties or people from Harvard University. So therefore, the WHO growth chart is called as Harvard Standards. So if you understand that the WHO growth chart is Harvard Standards, what is this Indian growth chart based on? What is this Indian growth charts? I told you that, let us say that you are living in Delhi or Mumbai. We call all the children and make them stand on a street. What children are you taking? Are you taking Tibetan children? Are you taking Kerala children? Are you taking Tamil Nadu children, Gujarat children, Haryana children, Rajasthan people, Manipur? Different heights are there in India, right? India is such a huge country. So what are the standards? Nobody thought on that. Nobody asked a question on that. So what are the standards that we used in ICDS growth chart? Please note that the ICDS growth chart, if you had asked the question, please send it to me on the feedback box in this video related with this video. But beta, the ICDS growth charts, please note they are based not on the Harvard standards. They are based on our own standards. These are called as MGRS standards. Now, what is this MGRS? MGRS stands for MGRS. It stands for multicentric growth reference study standards. It's a multicentric study which was conducted to find out the growth standards across country. So one point, another is clear over here, that the ICDS growth chart is based on the MGRS standards, whereas the WHO standards are Boston standards, also called as the Harvard standards. So what happened in Boston or in Harvard University, they made only simple 2 curves. So they said that they will call all the children, and the first curve is at the, mark the words, the first curve is at the 50th percentile, and the second curve or the lower curve is at third, not the -3, it is at the 3rd percentile. So please mark the words that the WHO growth chart is different from the ICDS growth chart. ICDS growth chart has how many curves? 3 curves. 50th percentile, -2 and -3. WHO growth chart has 2 curves, 50th percentile and 3rd percentile. Any child who falls between 50th percentile and 3rd percentile, this child is called as a green child. This area, this zone is called as a green zone. So the WHO people, they gave it a fancy name, road to health. So many times in the classes, people write down road to hell. It's not a road to hell. It is the road to health growth chart. That is the road to health growth chart. And people, of course, common sense, who are below 3rd percentile, that is a red zone. This is what is undernutrition. There's no criteria for like severe undernutrition or mild or moderate undernutrition. There's single answer. This type of growth chart is a field growth chart. It's a WHO growth chart called as a field growth chart, also known as a road to health growth chart. It is also called as a road to health growth chart, also called as a field growth chart, also called as a Boston growth chart, also called as a WHO growth chart. A lot of different names, but please note, beta, there is a distinct difference between a WHO growth chart and the Indian type ICDS growth chart. ICDS has only 3 curves. So in 3 curves, if a child falls between -2 and -3, that is mild to moderate malnutrition, and below that you have severe malnutrition. So now just a few points more to cover the topic on growth charts. What is the advantage of growth chart? The advantage of growth chart, it is a tool for action. It will tell the people when to start acting. It is also a tool for health education. It is very important, common sense. It's a tool for growth monitoring of growth. There is a small question, especially for the UG students. That's a question for you, beta. That growth monitoring, if you talk about the growth monitoring using a growth chart, what do you think is more important? Is it the location of the person on a ICDS growth chart? Is it important for you? That where does the child lie? Whether it is important, whether it's the child is in green zone, red zone, or the yellow zone, is the location important? Answer is that location may be important. Location may be important, may not be. That is irrespective. So the more important, not the more, the most important feature. The most important feature or the use of a growth chart is not about the location. It is about the, please write it in red words, beta. This is for all the UG students. Dear lovely UG students, most important feature is the trend of growth, or the trend of increase or decrease of growth. Please note that if a child is there on a growth chart, you have 3 zones, okay? If a child is today in a red category, Next, after 2 months, the child is going up. If the growth is showing upwards, is it a healthy sign? Of course, it's a healthy sign. Let us say another child is in green zone, very happy. But now, after 1 month also, it's a flat line. So is it good? Of course, it's a very bad sign because the child is not going to stay flat. The growth always has to increase. There is no way that the growth of the child will be flat. Please note that the location is not important. More important than location is the trend of the growth or the values, how they increase or decrease or they remain same. That is what is more important. So that's the benefit of growth charts. So now, just to close off this chapter, I would like to discuss with you the NFHS 5 data. This is the NFHS 5, the recent NFHS 5 data. Don't try to strain your eyes. I'm going to highlight what is important for you. You don't need to memorize all the numbers. So I'm just sharing the data so that you have an understanding that what's happening in India and is it real or not real. So if you just look at the point numbers 75 and 76, I'm going to say the points. Please note that the NFHS 5 data, it tells that the children who are aged less than 3 years and who are fed with breastfeeding within 1 hour. So within 1 hour of birth, the breastfeeding, it happened only in 42% of the children. So that's a bad figure because 60% of the children could not have feed within 1 hour. So that's a bad point. Second bad point is about the exclusive breastfeed. Can you believe that the exclusive breastfeed status in India is only 64%? That means the remaining 36% are not having exclusive breastfeeding in India. Talking about the undernutrition indicators. Third point is about the undernutrition indicators. If you can see the point number 84, that is the weight for age. If you look at the weight for age indicator beta, if you just look at the weight for age, how much is the weight for age? Unfortunately, we have to say that the weight for age prevalence in our country, as per the recent NFHS 5 data, is 32%. If you talk about the stunting and the wasting rates, what is more in India, stunting or the wasting? If you just look at the point number 81 and 82, we are talking about the stunting rates in India is 36% and the wasting rates in India is roughly around 20. So you can say that stunting is much more than wasting. Stunting is 36%, wasting is 20%. So you can remember 35% in India stunted and wasting is there in 20%. Overall weight for age general undernutrition is 32%. So these are there are so many things which needs to be done. Also, you can also appreciate that if we still talk about the levels of anemia, how many? First thing only, the children who are anemic in children. So anemia in children is 67%. Can you believe this? So if you just look at the anemia status, let us write over here only that the anemia status in India, it is 67% of under 5 children are anemic. So these are the numbers which you need to know for your exam, and based on this I will be able to help you understand that how the program in India works. The next videos will be talking about the RCH program or the RMNCH plus A program. So you now know the indicators, you know the problems, and you know the things that we need to do in our country. So with that, thank you so much for watching this module. See you in the next program, in the next module.
Hi guys, please subscribe my channels.